As often in our scripture, in metaphors that refer to Jesus, I thought perhaps that I would take an attempt to follow my master and teach this morning through a story with metaphors. As it is Mother's Day, my story is about a mother and her daughter, but I warn you that this story is mostly a tragedy. We will see at the end whether there is reason to hope and if the daughter has learned anything from her difficult relationship with her mother. Long ago, a mother lived with her large extended family in a great city. They lived in their own little neighborhood with its own customs and traditions. They had a unique and special relationship with their God that they believed was very different than anyone else around them. That relationship was the single most important part of their lives. They built a beautiful house of worship that was a marvel to the whole city. As their neighborhood was a prosperous one, it was often controlled by outside interests, and at the time of our story, the very strong people in the city had come to control the little neighborhood and made the mother's life a misery. In time, she had a young daughter who became restless under the occupation and longed for someone who would show her a better life. As it happened, a young man appeared among them, one of them, a young teacher. He was gentle and kind and very much wanted to help his people stay faithful to their God and encourage them to love one another. The young daughter began to follow him, and soon she fell deeply in love. Now, the mother was not sure of the young man, with ideas that seemed a bit radical and that departed from the tradition of how they had lived among each other and the strangers that surrounded them in the city. She wanted her daughter to follow the old, tried and true ways in these difficult times. But, as daughters will, when they are in love, she only clung all the more fiercely to her young lover. And then disaster struck. The great power in some of the mother's family decided the young man was too dangerous to live and had him put to death. The young daughter hid herself away, but soon revealed herself to her mother and related that she had secretly wed the young man on the very night before his death, and that she now knew that he lived forever in her heart and she would continue his work no matter the cost. Her mother, of course, full of concern and worry, tried to convince her to abandon him, but she would not. And then, as we say, the other shoe dropped, and the most terrible thing happened to the mother and her family. A small group of the family decided to violently resist the great power of occupation, and its revenge was swift and total. The neighborhood was destroyed, the great house of worship leveled, and its priests killed or scattered. The few remnants gathered, and the mother decided that the only way to survive now would be to insist that everyone follow in the same way. No other way would be tolerated. She demanded her daughter now abandon her new way and return to their tradition. But the daughter wrote a beautiful letter to her mother, a love letter, really, to her young man. It was all about him and who he really was and is and will ever be, and how the mother was wrong to reject him and should now recognize, especially in the light of the destruction of their home and their house and way of worship, that he is now the head of the family and their shepherd and guide on a new road and way through the weary world. And the mother read the letter, but grew afraid of her daughter and threw her out of her house and would have no more to do with her. The daughter suffered much alone, but soon her own family grew to be very great and powerful. Sadly, she remembered her mother with bitterness, and though she wished to follow the teachings of her beloved husband, she often grew proud and full of arrogance and would not tolerate any other way, including her own mother, who she now persecuted and who now suffered more than she ever had in the past. Finally, after a truly terrible time between the daughter and her mother, when the persecution was unrelenting and had cruelly put many of the family to death, some of the daughter's own children reread the letters their mother had written about her young man, and they wondered if she rightly understood him, as her actions were very different from his when faced with people who did not agree with him or worship God differently than he did. And in the night, in her dreams, the daughter finally heard her young husband whisper to her of how she misunderstood him and had committed a great wrong against her mother. She bitterly regretted now her treatment of her own mother and begged her forgiveness. And amazingly, many in her mother's family did forgive her. And mother and daughter now find a new road to travel together. It will never be as it was. Too much has changed and passed between them. But the All-Holy will help them to find their way, their truth, their life. I don't think the metaphors in my story have been so difficult that I must explain them, for I am not as good a storyteller as my master. So I will only say that, of course, the love letter to which I refer is the Gospel of John. And while for many of us who have embraced the bridegroom of our souls, it is beautiful beyond comprehension, and for many of us, the favorite gospel, it was often a terror, a source of great fear and pain for the Jews. And so I will now, in his spirit, the spirit of our bridegroom, our way, our truth, our life, the one who has revealed God to us, to our spiritual mother on this Mother's Day, I say, Shalom Aleichem, peace to you. And Baruch haba, Baruch Adonai, blessed be the one who comes, blessed be the Lord. Amen.